Player says oh, thank God. Klaus says Magdalene, is that you? What's the matter? Option 1 of 2 someone was standing near the house. The door was open. Option 2 of 2 oh it's nothing, Dad. Just checking in on you. Klaus says I always appreciate it. I'm worried about you, Magdalene. Player says you're worried about me? Klaus says you're working too hard. I know taking care of me takes up so much of your time, and I know how hard you've been working on the mural. Option 1 of 3 I wanted to finish it BEF for Christmas. Option 2 of 3 I know how important it is to you. Option 3 of 3 I am still young, Dad. I don't get tired as quickly as you do. Option 1 of 3 I wanted to finish it BEF for Christmas. Klaus says I know. Damn near an impossible task, given the size of that Rathaus. Well, maybe if you did just one wall. Hee. I'm not going to make it, Magdalene. Option 1 of 3 that's not true. Option 2 of 3 are you a doctor now? Option 3 of 3 I know. Option 1 of 3 that's not true. Klaus says I've been getting worse since Advent. Winding down like Balta's clock. These days I'm lucky if I can stay awake for a few hours. Player says. Klaus says it's alright, this is just life. I'm glad I'm going before you, even if it's sooner than either of us would like. I've already seen too much death in my time. Player says I just wanted to show you what I could do. I wanted you to be proud of me. Klaus says I have been. Every day of your life. You've never needed to prove anything to me. I wish I could stay to see the mural when you finish it, but I don't need to. I know it will be more beautiful than anything these old hands have ever made. Option 1 of 2 MOM was the artist. Option 2 of 2 Dante say that. Option 1 of 2 MOM was the artist. Klaus says she was. I just followed in her shadow. But you don't have to follow in mine. You can already see things that I never could. See things and make them real. Option 1 of 2 I don't know if that's true. Option 2 of 2 I am trying. Klaus says you're doing it. Whether I die tonight or tomorrow or the next day, I'm not going to be here much long. One morning you're going to wake up and you'll have to do things for yourself. Love things for yourself. And you'll have to share it with the world. Love is the only reason to do anything in this life. Player says. Klaus says oh, all this talking. Too much, could you bring me something to eat? Player says of course, Dad. You haven't eaten all day. Klaus says and I missed the Christmas feast, too. I can't believe no one brought me a cookie. Player says I'll go get some soup. Drucker house. Andreas says Klaus. I'm sorry, Klaus, about everything. Klaus says you're here. Option 1 of 3 I've been trying to keep Magdalene safe. Option 2 of 3 I think so. These days I feel like my mind has been cracking apart. Option 3 of 3 I thought I could stop all of this. Option 1 of 3 I've been trying to keep Magdalene safe. Andreas says I've been trying to figure it out this whole time. After the fire, it's all I could think about, that. And them. They've never left me. They're all still there. All in the dance of death, the Baron. Piero, Lucky. Hannah. Peter. Otto, Casper. August. And now you. Magdalene says Dad? Player says oh God, it's you. Who are you? What are you doing to my father? Klaus says Magdalene, it's all right. It's all right, Andreas says. I'm sorry. I've forgotten my manners after all these years. And you've likely forgotten my face. Or what it once was. Klaus says Magdalene, this is Andreas Mailer, back from the dead. Option 1 of 2 The earliest memory I have is of you running into a burning library. Option 2 of 2 And now you are here to kill my father? To kill me? Option 1 of 2 The earliest memory I have is of you running into a burning library. Andreas says I'm sorry. Player says I don't understand. No one could have survived that. Andreas says maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. Klaus says I don't understand. Andreas, where have you been all these years? Andreas says hiding from the world, in the ruins, mostly, sometimes in the woods when it was warm. Stealing bread from Gret. Stealing books from you. Klaus says oh. So I wasn't going crazy. Andreas says it's the only thing that's kept my mind from forgetting what words are. Player says wait, how did you survive the fire? Andreas says with some difficulty, I grabbed as many books as I could and threw them into the scriptorium. When the smoke got too thick, I started to black out. The next thing I remember was Casper pulling me into the crypt. Klaus says your apprentice? The boy? You sent him back to Salzburg. Andreas says, he didn't leave. He waited in the woods and watched what was happening. When he saw me in the window of the library, he ran through the crypt to save me, and he did. But he saw that I was trying to save the books and he went back in. I couldn't stop him. I was barely conscious. He never came back out. Klaus. When I woke up, everyone was dead or gone. I couldn't face any of you. I couldn't go back to Sabine. That empty house. So I hid. Option 1 of 2 Why have you been following me? I thought you were trying to kill me. Option 2 of 2 You painted over the dance of death in the abbey. Option 1 of 2 Why have you been following me? I thought you were trying to kill me. Andreas says what happened at the mine was an accident. I just stepped too close to the edge. I'm sorry. I was afraid to talk to you. Afraid to talk to anyone. Option 1 of 2 Did you leave us those notes? The ones with the purple writing? Option 2 of 2 What changed? Why are you here tonight? Andreas says to help you, to help Klaus. Player says help me? Help me with the mural? Andreas says help you survive to finish it. The hand that tried to kill your father will likely strike again. It has killed before to prevent Tassing's history from being known. Player says Tassing's history? Why? Andreas says because Tassing's real history is at odds with the story we've all been told. It's been covered, bit by bit, layer by layer, until it could no longer be seen, but it's still here. It's always been here, hidden beneath our feet, and it's still protected, haunted by the specter of death that has hung over this place for generations. Klaus says the thread puller. Player says thread puller? Beneath our feet? What are you talking about? Andreas says the person who attacked your father is the same person who manipulated someone into killing Otto Zimmermann. Klaus says and Lorenz Rothvogel. Andreas says yes. And they travel through the Roman aqueduct that connects Tassing and Kiersau. It's a network of tunnels I've become quite familiar with, and I've seen the ghost that haunts them, that can squeeze through the tiniest opening. I've seen it bend itself in half to reach places I could never follow. I've traveled along every inch of the aqueduct and the old city, but there is one place I have never found, the lair where the thread puller retreats to. The ancient Roman temple that it is determined to hide from view. Player says the Mithraeum. You found it? Andreas says no, but I mapped out a darkness between the collapsed tunnels. And I believe I know how to get there. Come with me. I'll show you. Option 1 of 3 NOW. Option 2 of 3 ALL right. Option 3 of 3 UH, Dad. Option 1 of 3 NOW. Andreas says if the thread puller becomes aware of what we're doing, well, I don't know what they'll do. We need to act quickly. Player says will you be alright? Klaus says yes, I'll be fine. Protect my daughter, Andreas. Andreas says with my life, Klaus. I promise. Player says alright. Let's find the Mithraeum. Player says the Rathaus? What are we doing here? Andreas says when the men dug the foundation, they found Roman ruins that had been buried over time. They wouldn't waste stone, so they used the Roman wall as one of the cellas. There's a way, inside. To the hidden place. Option 1 of 2. Option 2 of 2. Are you alright? Andreas says yes. Player says alright. Into the Rotskeller. Rotskeller. North Town. Player says alright, that wall is different. Does that mean this is the place? Andreas says no. It's two-sided. New and old, this was above ground once. It carried water, look. Player says alright. I think I can make it out. Cornelius goes to the bath today and completes the 6th step in the Mithrium. Andreas says yes. You see, option 1 of 2 and 0. There were cults of Mithras all over the Roman Empire. Option 2 of 2 and 0. I most certainly do not see. Option 1 of 2 and 0. There were cults of Mithras all over the Roman Empire. Player says we know there was a Mithrium in Tassing, but this is just some graffito from an initiate. How does it help us? Andreas says well, here. Option 1 of 3 WHAT is wrong with you. Option 2 of 3 a warning would be nice. Option 3 of 3. Option 1 of 3 WHAT is wrong with you. Andreas says oh, well, many things, probably. Physically and mentally, no time to talk about that now, though. This is the aqueduct. Option 1 of 2 yes, and? Option 2 of 2 the aqueduct carries water to the baths. So you think this will take us to the Mithrium? Andreas says exactly. Player says you seem quite confident. Andreas says we know it exists. I know where it is not. I believe this is the only place it could be. It must be near the baths. Option 1 of 2 you believe it? Option 2 of 2 WELL. You've already smashed a hole in the wall, so I suppose we might as well look. Option 1 of 2 you believe it? Andreas says yes. Player says alright. Andreas says after you, please. Player says this part of the tunnel has collapsed. We're not getting to the Mithrium this way. Andreas says I think, yes. Casper and I found a collapsed section of the aqueduct near town. He explored it, but couldn't describe what he found in the dark. This must be the other side. I shouldn't have let him go. I should have taken more care with him. Option 1 of 2 Andreas. We can't do anything about that now. Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2 Andreas. Andreas says yes, of course. The decoration. These must have been the baths. Player says it doesn't look like there's a way through. Andreas says silt. All the floods kept carrying it down here. Hundreds of years of floods. What if we can't get through? What if it's buried forever? Option 1 of 2 it's too early to get this discouraged. Option 2 of 2 I don't know. Maybe some things are just lost to time. Option 1 of 2 it's too early to get this discouraged. Player says let's keep looking. More stairs, down? Would something be below the baths? Andreas says a hypocaust. They use warm air to heat the rooms above. Roman colonies in the north often had them. Player says let's hope those haven't filled with silt as well. Player says do you know where we're going? These pillars just kind of go on in all directions. Andreas, could you look that way? I think I'm going to try exploring ahead, Andreas says of course. Lawrence says how could you abandon your work, Andreas? I thought you were a true artist, a master of your craft. But all you created was misery. Lucky says did you even believe I was the one who did it, or could you just stomach my death more easily? Hannah says I had thought you understood what I was forced to do. Your callousness killed us all. Casper says Master, why did you send me back into the flames? Andreas says no. No. This isn't right. I can't be here right now. How did I get here? Melancholia says Andreas. Andreas says you're still here. Melancholia says yes. For a little longer. Option 1 of 2 you relieving? Option 2 of 2 I thought I had gone mad. Option 1 of 2 you relieving? Melancholia says I am the last vestige of reason that once ruled this court. When it goes, I will go with it. Andreas says but who will rule the city if you leave? Melancholia says no one. You must leave this place forever, Andreas. You must abandon it for good. Andreas says but how? What can I do? I don't even know how I got here. Melancholia says this was once a place of refuge for you, Andreas, but it has become a prison you constructed to protect yourself. Andreas says from what? Melancholia says from pain. From risk. From life itself. Andreas says but I can't stay here. I have to help Magdalene. How do I get out? Melancholia says Andreas, you are the architect. I will help you as best I can, but you are the only one who can answer that. Sabine says hello, Andreas. Option 1 of 2 is that, you Sabine? Sabine says yes, of course. I'm still here. Part of me will always be here with you. We haven't talked in so long. Why? Option 1 of 3 I ran out of things to. Option 2 of 3 everything fell apart. Option 3 of 3 you reminded me of August. Andreas says remind me. Sabine says it wasn't all bad, Andreas. We lost him, but we had 4 years together. They were happy years, weren't they? Option 1 of 2 they were. Option 2 of 2 it's hard to remember. Option 1 of 2 they were. Andreas says but then they ended. And it felt like life ended with them. Sabine says I know. It was hard for both of us. I don't blame you for anything, and you should stop blaming yourself. It may be too late for us, but it's not too late for you, Andrea. It's not too late for Magdalene. Andreas says yes, Magdalene. I have to help her. Sabine says you can, Andreas. But you have to leave this place behind. Andreas says I know. I can, I will. Sabine says you will. Andreas says thank you, Sabine. Will I ever see you again? Sabine says not in this place, but maybe someday, in a better place, in a better dream. Casper says Master Andreas. Andreas says oh, Casper. It's really you. Casper says it's so good to see you again, Master. Option 1 of 2 HOW. Can you say that? Andreas says you died because of me. Casper says I just wanted to help you, Master Andreas. You couldn't think straight. You shouldn't blame yourself anymore. Option 1 of 2 I let my family down. Option 2 of 2 WHAT should I do? Option 1 of 2 I let my family down. Andreas says I couldn't stop Peter, couldn't save Tassing. I couldn't even save more than a couple armfuls of books. Casper says you did what you could, Master. Everyone knows you did. And that's all any of us can do. Andreas says all right, Casper, thank you. Casper says thank you for everything you taught me. Andreas says wait, what happened? This was the way out. Before I started talking to Casper, I know this was the way out. Beatrice says your mind is fighting itself, Andreas. It remembers the pain of life. It's trying to protect you from it. Andreas says Beatrice? Beatrice says yes. Andreas says I thought you were gone. Beatrice says you brought me back. Andreas says oh. So, what do I do now? Beatrice says keep going. August says. Option 1 of 2 YOU, 2? Andreas says it's been so many nights, so many years without seeing your face. I thought I had forgotten it. August says. Option 1 of 2 I know there's nothing I could have done, but. Option 2 of 2 I knew you were still here, though. Option 1 of 2 I know there's nothing I could have done, but. Andreas says that doesn't make me feel any less guilty. It's always there under the surface, no matter how I try to bury it, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. August says. Andreas says I. August says it's all right. Andreas says. What? August says it's all right, Daddy. Andreas says. It is? August says you don't have to hide here anymore. Option 1 of 2 I am scared, August. Option 2 of 2 but what about you? And Casper? Andreas says and your mother? August says we're not really here, and there are people who need you. Option 1 of 2 WHAT if I can't help them? Option 2 of 2 it's so hard to let you go. Option 1 of 2 WHAT if I can't help them? August says I don't know, Daddy, I'm too little. I think you have to figure that out on your own. Andreas says of course, you're right. Thank you. August says I love you, Daddy. Andreas says I love you, too. Good night, August. August says good night. Andreas says they shifted again. The walls. Beatrice says it's still trying to protect you. Andreas says no. Beatrice says it's not. Andreas says no no, I don't have to do this. This is my mind. My maze, and I'm leaving. Beatrice says good, but this next part might be confusing. Andreas says what? I don't understand. I don't understand any of this. Option 1 of 2 WHY are you holding the maze? Option 2 of 2 DID I make this? Option 1 of 2 WHY are you holding the maze? Beatrice says two things are merging in your mind. Andreas says UAND. Beatrice says there are layers to everything, even our memory. Over time, the foundations become buried. We can no longer recall how we got here, no longer recall what came before. Andreas says and what came before? Beatrice says Our Lady, watching over the labyrinth as I watch over you, and even this has roots that reach deep into the past. There was not always a lady to watch over the labyrinth, but there was a labyrinth. Andreas says what? I don't understand. Sister Amelie? Is this real? Am I still in my mind? Amelie says you are here, with me, and we are here in spirit. Option 1 of 2 Are we still in the ruins? Option 2 of 2 you looked like Beatrice a moment ago. Option 1 of 2 are we still in the ruins? Option 2 of 2 you looked like Beatrice a moment ago. Emily says Beatrice? I don't know her. We are in the tabernacle. The heart of the labyrinth. Your spirit was wandering and the Lord brought you here. Andreas says but I don't understand. How did you leave your cell? Emily says I have not. We are only here in spirit, Andreas. Option 1 of 3 is this real? Am I finally experiencing that which I have only read about in the testimony of mystics? Option 2 of 3 are you here to save me? Option 3 of 3 I am seeing things. This isn't real. Option 1 of 3 is this real? Am I finally experiencing that which I have only read about in the testimony of mystics? Emily says I told you long ago that reading cannot communicate a spiritual experience, but yes, this is real, and you need not be afraid. Have faith. If you are here with me, it is the Lord's will. Player says Andreas. Sister Emily? What are you doing here, sister? Emily says this is the center of the labyrinth. The tabernacle. It is where the Lord sends my spirit to do His will. He has also guided your spirits here. There must be a purpose to it. Option 1 of 3 sister, we're looking for the Mithrium. Is this it? Option 2 of 3 The Lord's will? What do you mean? Option 3 of 3 No, this isn't my spirit. I walked here, through the aqueduct. Option 1 of 3 sister, we're looking for the Mithrium. Is this it? Option 3 of 3 No, this isn't my spirit. I walked here, through the aqueduct. Emily says you are confused, Magdalene. It's understandable, my own visions have perplexed me for all of my life. Even though this seems strange, even though it is a place of spirit, it is very real. The Lord has called me to this place for many years. He has always made His will known to me. Soon, He will make it known to you. Andreas says sister, how does your spirit come to this place? Emily says through the door between life and death. When my spirit hears the call, it descends through my grave. Here the Lord tells me what messages I must bear, and to whom. Option 1 of 2 you deliver messages? Option 2 of 2 how? It was almost impossible for us to reach this place. Emily says I used to think my affliction, my pain, was a curse. I know now that it was a gift from God. A gift that allows me to bend my body as I bend my soul to His will. There is no place in Tassing or Kiersa He cannot reach through me. Andreas says wait. Emily says I thought I had given up the pen forever, until the visions returned. Andreas says no. Emily says when fire took my abbey, I couldn't save my sisters. Not one. All I could grab was a single book and a bolt of purple ink cloth. I couldn't understand why God had spared me alone. But He showed me. God had a higher purpose for me, for my hand. Father Thomas explained it to me. He makes everything clear. He tells me what I must do, what the Lord wills me to do. Andreas says it was you. This whole time, you wrote the notes. Player says I found one by my dad when he was attacked. Andreas says Sister Emily, you pushed those people into committing murder. Emily says what? No. No. That can't be true. The Lord would not use me for such a purpose. Option 1 of 3 calm yourself, sister. We'll figure this out. Option 2 of 3 but that's what happened, sister. You wrote those notes. Option 3 of 3 maybe it wasn't the Lord's will, but your own. Option 1 of 3 calm yourself, sister. We'll figure this out. Andreas says this doesn't make any sense. Why would Emily want anyone dead? Emily says no. I wouldn't. He wouldn't. There was nothing in his messages about murder. No no no. I am not here. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. Thomas says Sister Emily, SHH, it's all right. Player says Father Thomas. How did you get down here? Thomas says Tassing is an old place. It's buried many ancient roads and tunnels over the centuries. People walk above the hidden ways every day without even knowing it. Though in truth it was Sister Amelie who rediscovered them first. And found this place. Andreas says wait, the dimensions of this room. This is the foundation of the church. Father Thomas, did you? Thomas says in other circumstances I would be overjoyed to see you, Andreas. In truth, I am still happy you are alive. Thank God, but I think the occasion of this reunion leaves little to rejoice about. Andreas says you. Option 1 of 2 while you knew about this place. Option 2 of 2 while you and Sister Amelie were behind all of the murders. Option 1 of 2 while you knew about this place. Thomas says yes. Knowing about this place, the Mithraeum, is why I did all of this. I had to keep it hidden. And I did. Until now. Player says why? Thomas says look around you. What do you see? Option 1 of 2 paintings of Roman gods, Mars and Diana. Option 2 of 2 Roman ruins. Option 1 of 2 paintings of Roman gods, Mars and Diana. Thomas says look closer. Andreas says it looks like the statue of Saint Moritz from the meadow. Player says and the images of Saint Sasha from the shrine. I don't understand. Thomas says it's Saint Moritz and Saint Sasha. And Mars and Diana. Option 1 of 2 HOW can it be both? Option 2 of 2 THE saints are the gods? Option 1 of 2 HOW can it be both? Thomas says when the Romans left Tassing, their buildings, their temples, their statues remained. Christians settled here centuries later. They found time-worn fragments of that imperial grasp. This statue of Mars Pater that once watched over the Roman fields stood there still, headless and nameless. The settlers believed it was Saint Moritz, who was already a legend where they had come from. They found the shrines to Sasha and, not understanding she was an aspect of Diana, believed she was another local saint. Option 1 of 3 It's not uncommon for stories to borrow and change characters from older tales. Option 2 of 3 So the people turned them into saints? Option 3 of 3 Why didn't the church do something? Option 1 of 3 It's not uncommon for stories to borrow and change characters from older tales. Thomas says but these are not stories, Magdalene. These are saints. Our saints. The settlers did not see them through pagan Roman eyes, but through Christian eyes. No one knew they were Roman gods because there was no account of what the Romans did and left here. Andreas says except for Historiatasha. Thomas says but Historiatasha was not known then. Perhaps it had not even been written then. Who knows how long that book had been lost for before it made its way to Father Matthias. Andreas says and you killed him for it. Thomas says, yes. With poison, no one suspected. Option 1 of 2 Wait. What? You killed someone? Option 2 of 2 Hold on, who was Father Matthias. Option 1 of 2 Wait. What? You killed someone? Thomas says may God forgive me. I did, yes. When Father Matthias learned that there was no evidence that Saint Moritz had ever come to Tassing, that the shrine to him in the meadow was a statue of Mars that the Romans had erected hundreds of years ago, that Saint Sasha was the Roman goddess Diana, he resolved to deal with it. Andreas says and you resolved to deal with him. Thomas says Andreas, our people believe in Saint Moritz. They believe in the miracles God has worked through his hand, and they believe in the legend of Saint Sasha, that she helped Moritz and watches over Tassing still. Option 1 of 2 Why does it matter if they were wrong, if the saints weren't here? Option 2 of 2 And that was worth killing the abbot? Option 1 of 2 Why does it matter if they were wrong, if the saints weren't here? Thomas says then what does that mean for the hand of Saint Moritz? What does it mean for the people who prayed to him, to Saint Sasha, and believed their prayers were answered? What does it mean for the church that has given people hope, fixed like a false star in a dark sky? If the people have reason to doubt the validity of the saints, can they doubt the church? Can they doubt the gospel, the word of God? Option 1 of 2 Perhaps some would, but you've always told us that we have to accept Christ of our own free will. Option 2 of 2 Do you have so little faith in ordinary people, Father Thomas? Option 1 of 2 perhaps some would, but you've always told us that we have to accept Christ of our own free will. Thomas says yes, of course. But preserving the legends of our saints doesn't interfere with individual volition. Andreas says you are preserving a lie. Thomas says I preserved a lie to illuminate greater truth. God so loved the world that he gave his only son. If you believe this, if you truly believe this, eternal life is yours. And saints have walked among us. And their relics work miracles. And they hear our prayers and answer them. Andreas says and the two that protect this town were never here. Thomas says they don't need to know that, Andreas. There are times when God feels so far away from us in these mountains. But a peasant in Tassing can stand in a field, look over our valley and say, St. Moritz was here, God was with us and he is with us still, and he will be with us always, and that is the truth. Even if the legend of St. Moritz is a lie. Option 1 of 2 so many people have died because of what you've done. Option 2 of 2 and you think that justifies all of this? Option 1 of 2 so many people have died because of what you've done. Thomas says I know this is hard to believe, but I was trying to save lives, to prevent death. Andreas says but one murder didn't solve the problem, did it? Because one day Baron Rothvogel rode into town with another copy of Historia Tasha, a copy he promised to give to the abbot so Kiersaw could come to terms with its past. And if Father Gernot read its contents, you would be facing the same danger you saw in Father Matthias. Thomas says in retrospect, given how Father Gernot chose to run the abbey, my fears may have been unfounded. Option 1 of 2 do you think he wouldn't? Option 2 of 2 that sentiment didn't prevent you from doing it again. Option 1 of 2 do you think he wouldn't have cared? Thomas says whether he cared or not, I think the abbot would have been more concerned with preserving the abbey, but there was also the Baron himself. Given his provocations, he surely would have told people eventually. Andreas says but then why Otto? Certainly he didn't have anything to do with Historia Tasha. He couldn't even read. In the end, his murder provoked Peter and the others into destroying the abbey. Thomas says I never thought that would happen. I underestimated Peter's anger and the peasants' frustration. Option 1 of 2 so you killed him to prevent an uprising, but it caused it instead? Option 2 of 2 you seem to have a difficult time reading people, Father. Option 1 of 2 so you killed him to prevent an uprising, but it caused it instead? Thomas says someone else killed him, as someone else killed Baron Rothvogel. And it wasn't to prevent an uprising, but to stop him from showing people what he found. What he found when he was helping to dig the foundation of the Rathaus. Option 1 of 3 the wall of the aqueduct. Option 2 of 3 bones. Evidence of some other murder. Option 3 of 3 something from our pagan ancestors. Option 1 of 3 the wall of the aqueduct. Thomas says no, everyone knows about the old aqueducts. That wouldn't cause alarm. What he found was a stone head. The missing head of the statue in the meadow, the statue at the shrine of St. Moritz. Player says how did it wind up over there? Thomas says the most likely culprits are rain, floods, and time. Player says Blacktill told me that farmers find old tools and pottery in the fields every year. Thomas says yes. And this head remained hidden for centuries. It sat in the soil until Otto found it, and he was going to show everyone that God had favored the town with his discovery. What Otto could not know is that our shrine statue was not of St. Moritz, because Otto could not read the words chiseled across the helmet. Mars Pater. Andreas says but the man he entrusted with this information, the town priest, could. Thomas says yes. Andreas says and you told him to meet you on St. John's Eve at the Rathaus. Thomas says I could not let him destroy our town's beliefs. Andreas says and you had poor sister Amelie write down what you told her were visions she couldn't remember, and deliver them in the dead of night to Guy, to Hannah, to Martin, so that one of them would murder Otto, just as someone murdered Lawrence. Player says what about my father? Thomas says I'm sorry, Magdalene. Option 1 of 2 why did you do it? It doesn't make any sense. Option 2 of 2 I've lived next to you my whole life. How could you? Option 1 of 2 why did you do it? It doesn't make any sense. Player says was it because of the mural? Thomas says yes, Klaus pursued the project with the determination of a guilty man doing penance. He kept digging and digging for answers about Tassing's past. Kearsaw's past. I was afraid that sooner or later, he would find out about Moritz, Seisha, this place, everything. Option 1 of 2 so you tried to kill him. Option 2 of 2 remain silent. Option 1 of 2 so you tried to kill him. Thomas says no, I tried to scare him. First with the note. But he ignored it. I thought if I ransacked the workshop, it would scare him off. I didn't expect him to come down so quickly. It was just an accident. Option 1 of 2 it wasn't an accident. You almost killed him. Option 2 of 2 say nothing. Option 1 of 2 it wasn't an accident. You almost killed him. Thomas says I know. Andreas says so what are you going to do now? Kill me? Kill Magdalene? Thomas says no. Of course not, I have neither the means nor the will to do so. But even if I can't stop you from telling people what I've done, I can stop them from finding this place. Andreas says, option 1 of 2 and O. Father Thomas, stop. Option 2 of 2 what are you doing? Option 1 of 2 and O. Father Thomas, stop. Thomas says it's too late for me, but I can still take Tassing's secrets with me. Andreas says Father, you're going to kill us all. You're going to kill Amelie. Thomas says then leave, and take her with you. You can tell the townsfolk what you want, but if you stay here, we'll die together. Option 1 of 3 Father Thomas, this is suicide. Option 2 of 3 you can't stop people from learning the truth. Option 3 of 3 you'd really kill yourself and destroy the church just to hide this secret. Thomas says churches can be rebuilt more easily than faith. I'm willing to pay the price for that. Andreas says Father. Thomas says go.